Hello everyone, I hope that you are doing very well and having very nice summer days. Today I'm here with another topic. I would like to talk a bit about psychological abuse or childhood trauma, about triangulation, how we can understand it. Do these phrases sound familiar to you? For example, go tell your dad it is dinner time. Tell your auntie that she is not allowed to behave like this in our house. Or please talk to him and tell him that he has to call him as soon as possible. Please talk to your uncle. He doesn't like to hear from me, and so on. Well, if you as a child were often asked to do such favors or were used as a family therapist or messenger or mediator across different family situations, I have a sad news for you. You have been psychologically and emotionally abused. And this is unfortunately a very typical phenomenon in enmeshed families influenced by toxic dynamics, where there are no or very vague interpersonal boundaries. However, such a dysfunction might be considered as warmth, as a closeness in family. And if you experienced such a thing as a child, then it is not strange that now, as an adult person, you tend to take such mediating, favorable roles for your parents, for your siblings, other family members, and even for your friends. Because this kind of establishing peace and harmony is just so familiar and even, relief delivering for you that you cannot escape it. And the hardest part for a kid is, getting forced to interpret others' emotional states, others' feelings, and trying to convert these mood and emotional states into some milder and less scary, less dangerous states, which are easier to tolerate, which are easier to handle and deal with. In other words, you as a child were used as the victim, as a tool for managing other people's emotions. Or it may happen that you were, strongly encouraged to go no contact or eliminate some specific people from your social network because, for instance, your dad or your mom or whole family had a big conflict, big issue with them. And then it became as somewhat taboo in your family to talk about these people or this very conflict. Both of these examples relate to codependency, which I've already talked about, but when it comes to triangulation, the difficult and harmful dimensions are multifaceted. As the child learns several bad things or misconceptions about relationship, about connection, communication, authenticity, honesty, and other necessary qualities. So one of the most unfair lessons for an innocent child is that you have to fix the emotions and all those unpleasant feelings that are naturally something that happens in family dynamics, but especially when these emotions emerge in conflicts and in unpleasant or unsafe spaces, they should be dangerous. So now, as an adult, you just catch all those relational conflictful situations which have to be fixed, even if they should not directly matter to you. They are not about you or your life. It might feel like it is your job being a mediator. And since you have done this for years, everyone expects you to do that. And all emotions, laced with anxiety and guilt get filtered through you as if you have got a natural extra filter for other people's, inner conflicts and emotions, because it is you and, everyone has always seen you getting pulled as a third person to take responsibility for friction caused by direct and honest and difficult communications and back channeling messages and, facilitate communication. So, by absorbing the other's discomfort, you risk detaching and disconnecting from your own feelings and inner world. And although triangulation is actually toxic and cause exhaustion, you don't even realize that it is occurring because it is normalized for you, and you have to constantly deal with a sense of distress and pressure which you do not actually need to be accountable for. So the sad story is that the alienator child is the one through whom the family structure dynamics are controlled. He is the one who is supposed to bear the pain and friction because another person in a family context, usually a parent, intends in strengthening his or her control upon another person. I mean, in this context, the other parent. And this is done via the child. And this is very sad reality. We know by experience that many children whose parents undergo, very conflictful separation or divorce processes might be exposed to triangulation at some point, but the worst things that may happen is that some children will continue using triangulation deliberately later on in their lives because they have learned these mechanisms as a not only a peacekeeping tool but also as a strategy to manipulate other people. So you can say that triangulating mechanisms get absorbed and internalized into their inner world and as an embodied part of their psyches. And some of these children become experts to manipulate others in order to be aligned with their meanings and intentions, or they do this on behalf of other people, right? So, and this is very dangerous because by using the child as a mediator, the parent is actually making capacity within the child to lie, to behave dishonestly, to manipulate and make unsafe spaces. And since original triangulation dynamics where the child was exposed to were very demanding in emotional and ethical and cognitive levels, then the child might develop the capacity to subtle lying and challenging your discernment ability. So triangulation is a method that a dysfunctional parent may use to make use of child's psychological resources in favor of his or her own need for control. But there is an important reason why children do this repeatedly, and so they get a feeling that it is a positive thing, and so their tendency to do this get reinforced over time. Triangulation serves a function like other strategies, abusive mechanisms. The child who is exposed to triangulation is usually addressed by the alienating parent as a special kid who is so understanding, so present, so smart, observant and caring. I remember that one of my clients said that her father always said that she's very mature, she has got very mature personality and is very smart in understanding others, in particular his needs. So he said frankly to her that she was good in reading him emotionally, and this was reinforced through her childhood. So for her as a kid, it was an advantage to be seen as a special kid whom other family members can rely on because she is very attentive, very smart, very caring, as her father said. And the child, gets strongly dependent on this alienating parent. So such a role generates feelings of being special and powerful and even more important person than the other parent who the child and the alienating parent reject and refuse bonding with, unfortunately. So you see that children's emotional worlds can be literally invaded by triangulation. This is a very dysfunctional and toxic method for misusing power in family dynamics by which children become the victims. Many of these children may also develop, trust issues, and it can be observed that there will be, a lot of troubles conflicts, problems around them, for example in the schools, because these children are confused. Since their inner spaces and harmony is invaded and used in order to serve a place for others' emotions due to their incapacity for managing their own conflicts. And also that these children, for example, those who are constantly exposed to two totally different worlds, for example at their divorced parents' places, may use splitting as an unconscious coping strategy. And while appreciating and bonding with one parent, they may criticize and covertly hate the other parent. And such splitting strategy may lead to inability to empathy, the lack of willingness and ability to see the other person's perspective. And here we go. This can be the beginning of an adverse and challenging time during adulthood. Therefore, in therapy work, it is very important to find out and address patterns and triangulating behaviors people show in subtle ways in their therapy process, because as mentioned before, this becomes an ingrained part of psychological functioning of people, like our default communication strategies and relationship mentality that we may not recognize on our own. So addressing and helping the people turning off triangulation-induced tendencies and behaviors would prepare the fundamentals of a successful therapy with a more profound effect. And to do this, it is important to involve others in the family system if applicable. This kind of intervention is about inviting the family dynamics into communication sphere in order to address the triangle and the beneath toxic processes. As I mentioned before, children have only their bodies, their nervous systems, in a very simplistic and concrete sense. So you can imagine that their bodies and minds function as one integrated soul unity. They internalize the harm, the impacts into their body, and this will be their way of seeing life and tackling things further in life. So when boundaries are invaded, there will be problems in regulating emotions and close relationships. So direct, honest, and open and difficult conversations, communication between adults in the family without involving children is so essential part of healthy family life. I wish that you're among those careful and knowledgeable, kind parents who are sensitive enough to treat your child with care, empathy, and justice. I hope that you have found these reflections as beneficial and interesting. We'll hopefully connect again soon. Thank you. Bye.